Mooring to a buoy. Now what are we talking about? Not the navigational buoy, mooring to a mooring buoy. Give you an idea of what some of them look like. They're all over the world. They've been around forever. Most of them are I won't even say most. They're either the flat type or what some call a can type of buoy. And you'll see them intermixed. Some harbors will have flat and can, you know, who knows. Here's my ship. I'm talking, so I'm going to talk about my ship. USS Kirk in Hong Kong Harbor. Looks like a can type of buoy. I don't know exactly when this was, but it was sometime before 1983 or 4 when she got the very distinctive hurricane bow. I've moored to a buoy one time as the conning officer, and it was on the Kirk, and I don't know if this was the time. But anyway, Hong Kong Harbor. Now this is from the official deck log of my very first ship. Kirk was my third. My first ship was an APA. Now if you'll notice, APA 237. The only reason I'm using this picture is because it clearly shows moored to a buoy. We did twice. On the 11th of October, we were in Kaohsiung. We had to moor to 2 buoys, and just remember that because I'm going to talk about that later on. 2 buoys. You say, well, why do you need 2? You'll find out. And then we went and moored in Hong Kong a couple months later to a single buoy. Now, that's not my ship, but that is. Montrose was my first ship. I was the gunnery officer on it. Now I'm going to show you, I'm going to kind of step through our years a little bit in Hong Kong. Again, I'm a Pacific sailor. I've never been to the Med, so all my experience is in the Pacific. Herbert J. Thomas, again, very distinctive Hong Kong, mountainous, right down to the coast. Leonard Mason, another Fram. In my research, I found out she's retrieved the Gemini 8 astronauts. So that's in the 60s in Hong Kong. Here's the Buchanan, one of our Charles F. Adams class DDGs. You'll see another one a little later on, and it's going to be an interesting one. Now this is not Hong Kong. I'm not sure where it is. This does not appear to be a Hong Kong ferry. It's a little bit different. Again, back to Hong Kong, is the 1052, the Whipple, in December of '74. And here's one of our Fig 7s. This is the Thatch in Hong Kong. Now, this is much newer. This is Sinopec. I finally figured out what that said. It's a Chinese, so you know this is after they turned over Hong Kong to the Chinese in 1997. So this is, I think, late 80s or early 90s. And this has got a lot of information on it. This is Decatur, DDG 73, Arleigh Burke class, moored to a buoy in Hong Kong. Victoria Harbor, they were very distinctive because there are various harbors within Hong Kong. Victoria Harbor in 2017. And there's another, I can't quite make, there's a 5 on the end of it, but I can't quite make its hull number out. Another Arleigh Burke back there. Hong Kong indefinitely suspended our access to Hong Kong in 2019. So this was just 2 years before the Chinese said don't come back. You can see what, now if you want to really see how Hong Kong has been built up, take a look at the skyline of Hong Kong in 2017 against Hong Kong in 1936, before the war. I want to point out a couple things because the next three photos are going to show this. This is his at the time, His Majesty's Dockyard at Hong Kong, right there. 1936. Here's 1950, after the war. His Majesty's Dockyard, right here. Now there are at least at least 3 destroyers. There's 1 here, and I believe these are 2 here, and 2 aircraft carriers out there. Either the carriers are probably anchored, destroyers moored to buoys. Okay, here's in the 1960s or 70s, sometime in that period. The only reason I put that up, this is a blown up version of this, His Majesty's Dockyard. It's now Her Majesty's Dockyard. A Royal Navy aircraft carrier, 3 Royal Navy Leander type frigates, 1, 2, 3 U.S. Navy destroyers at buoys. My point here is, you can tell, you know darn well that young seaman on the Royal Navy, he's about 5 minutes away to his first beer. These guys aren't. Long time. That's what I'm saying. Home field advantage, because it belongs to the Queen. Staying with Hong Kong, a couple points here. I found these photographs. If you'll notice, one ship is moored to the buoy. This ship is moored to the ship. Same thing down here. The Walker 517, Walker was a movie star. She had a role to play in None But the Brave and In Harm's Way. Down here, Colohan, by the way, for you side cleaners and for you bosun mates, they're over the side here. They're painting, and I'm sure it's not Mary Sue. But what I'm thinking is Colohan is probably, or perhaps, the station ship Hong Kong. Every ships would get assigned the duties of station ship Hong Kong, and those duties were you carried the comm guard, the medical guard. You were the coordinator for the shore patrol. Anything that happened, you know, if the Hong Kong police picked up one of your guys, they informed the station ship. Now, station ship was sometimes 3-4 weeks long. Crew loved it for the first 10 days, because guess what? At the end of 10 days, no more money. So a lot of these guys would go right on permanent shore patrol. So this is Hong Kong also. Now, I took this out of Blue Jacket's manual, right here, 1940 notes. Notice 1940. Large ships infrequently moored to a buoy, but it's a part of a destroyer's regular routine. Now, I'll ask you all here, was it your regular routine on your ship to moor to a buoy? Probably not. Not your regular routine. You would go alongside a pier, you would maybe anchor out, but you would not moor to a buoy. My ship's moored to a buoy, well, first ship twice, second ship once, and that was it. So 3 times. That was it, my entire career. Mm-hmm. Captain, same way? Once?
Yeah, twice.
Twice.
But all on the first ship.
How does that track with the destroyer's regular routine? Well, let's take a look. This is 1938. Fleet problem, it's almost like Super Bowl. Fleet problem XIX, fleet problem number 19. Every year, for 20 years, the U.S. Navy, the Pacific Fleet, conducted a fleet problem. Some of you might be aware that in 1933, the fleet problem was to take Pearl Harbor, was to attack Pearl Harbor. A couple of years later, the fleet problem was to take the Panama Canal. And they mustered the entire Pacific Fleet to do it. Split them up into the Black Fleet and the White Fleet back then, black and white. This, I believe, is San Diego. My only reason for saying that is I spent half my career in San Diego. This, I believe, is a spit of land from the island of Coronado. And I believe that this entire area here that you see is 32nd Street and the National Steel Shipbuilding. This is before the piers. But what you see here, this is a press release photograph before this 1938 fleet problem. This is basically the destroyer fleet that was getting underway to go take Pearl Harbor as part of the fleet. I blew the picture up. There are 41 destroyers in that picture alone. And either 4 or 5 at a single buoy. And that's what they are. They're all at a single buoy. So that's kind of what that meant. It was the routine for destroyers back then to hook up to a buoy. There are also 2 cruisers, and I put down the destroyers are of the Porter, Mahan, and Farragut classes. Predates the World War II. There are 2 cruisers, and I'm not sure. There are four cruisers involved in this fleet problem, and here they are. These are the 2 cruisers. I'm not sure which ones they are. And 1 aircraft carrier, probably coming out from North Island Naval Air Station, and it was either Ranger, Saratoga, or Lexington. So, now here's another picture. I'm not sure what fleet problem this is, but remember I said that you could moor to 2 buoys? Every one of these ships in here, and these are submarines, destroyers, and a cruiser I can see there. This is off Los Angeles, probably Long Beach in LA Harbor. But because of the restricted, these ships cannot swing at a buoy. So what they are, they're moored fore and aft. It was very common, moored fore and aft, and so that it didn't matter what the current, what the winds were doing, they're in place. And that was in setting up for one of those fleet problems. And again, now this is definitely off San Pedro and Long Beach. These are battleships, some cruisers also, but they're at the hook. There are no buoys involved there. And one clue, if you're ever looking at a picture and you say, "What's this?" You see all this? That's mud from the bottom. An anchor, when you drop a hook, it's not the anchor that's holding you. It's the anchor chain that's on the bottom that's holding you. So when these ships are working at the anchor chain, the chain is moving back and forth in the mud. And that's what you're seeing here. That's the mud from all these ships that are at anchor. Again, late 30s, I'm not sure which problem it was. All right, just to show that we can swing 4 buoys or 4 ships, this is the Porter. 6 or 7 years ago when we did the Fram, I don't know if any of you remember that, with the comparison of Fram 1, Fram 2. I used this photograph because no one would believe me that there were destroyers pre-war with 8 5-inch guns. Notice these are the Porter class. 1, 2, 3, 4 times 2. So, if anyone ever tell it's a good trivia for a tin can sailor. Yeah, it's a Porter class. Swinging, all attached though. Remember I showed you in the Hong Kong, some of those Hong Kong where you had one at the buoy and the others attached to him. All 4 of these are hooked to that same buoy. And I think this is a YO, a yard oiler refueling. All right, well, how much can you hold? Here are 2 battleships, the Missouri and the Iowa, swinging from the same buoy. It's over 100,000 tons of displacement hanging on that one buoy. So.
And by anchor chain.
Hmm?
And they're doing it by their anchor chain.
That's right. Yeah, that's a very good point. This is for a destroyer. Everybody, the normal way to do it is your anchor chain is what's hooked to that buoy, not a mooring line or a cable. Although some merchants do that. All right. Well, what are we talking about? Where's Dallas? Where's that? Any other quartermasters in here besides Dallas? All right, Dallas. Here we go. This is a very simple thing. The navigator and his quartermasters plate the ideal turn point. Here we are. This is the entry channel. You're coming in, and you base that on visual cuts. You pick up the church steeple, the factory chimney, the point of land, all the lighthouse. So all the way in, the navigator and his quartermasters are working that problem. Their problem really ends right here, because he says, "Captain, time to turn is whatever it is." All right, navigator and the quartermaster, they say, "Okay, problem solved. I got you turned." All right, turning it over to the conning officer. Okay, the actual ship's course to approach the assigned buoy is really the problem of the conning officer, because he's got to take into consideration the winds and the currents. The only problem the navigator ever had was computing his time to turn, because he's going against, in this case, against the current. All right, now I've highlighted and underlined the conning officer's problem based on winds and currents and the actual physical congestion in the harbor. Captain, our assigned buoy lies exactly 5 miles straight ahead on the other side of the anchorage. Oh, I'm Ensign Doyle. Oh. The captain says to me, "Have you seen the buoy yet?" So you're working your way. So that very neat course that the navigator gave you, guess what? You're going to find your way to that anchorage. This is also Hong Kong, and this is not atypical at all in Hong Kong. Okay, how do you do this? Now, this comes from, this is out of our library here. It's called On a Destroyer's Bridge. It was written by a remarkable man who died way too soon. He commanded 3 4-stack destroyers. He won the Navy Cross in the First World War as a Lieutenant JG because of his work in early anti-submarine warfare. His name was Commander Holloway H. Frost. I've read much about him, and most of what has been said about him is if he had lived, he would have worn 4 stars. He would have been known in the group of Nimitz, Halsey, etc. Graduate, 1910 graduate of the Naval War College. The Naval Academy. Taught at the Naval War College. He was qualified to command submarines. He was a qualified naval aviator. He had his wings, and this guy was Tom Brady of his time. For you Patriots fans. And he wrote this book. It's a definitive book. If you ever, it's tiny, but boy, is it full. 1930. He said, very simple. When you're about 800 yards from the buoy, and look what you're doing. You're going into the current. You're going to line up with the current. So remember our original chart. The current's coming from over here. So once you get to the buoy, you got to get lined up with it. Approach the buoy at 1/3 speed. When about 300 yards, coast up to it with bare steerage way on the ship. Put your motor launch, motor whaleboat we call today, put your motor launch in there with a regular crew and a nimble seaman, what has been called a buoy jumper. This is what your problem is. Buoy jumpers, board the buoy, attach the buoy wire, then reboard the boat. You don't want to leave them on the buoy any more than you have to. The boat's alongside. They attach this wire, the buoy wire. Attached to the buoy wire with this little riding shackle is the 3rd link of the chain. You've detached the chain from the anchor, you've let it through the bullnose, and you slide it down to the buoy. It gets to the buoy, and the buoy jumpers get back on. They hook up the mooring shackle. They get off because you then detension the buoy wire. He gets back on, unhooks the buoy wire, and jumps back off again. And then retrieve the buoy wire and walk out your chain to whatever the captain has decided he wants as a scope of chain. Pretty simple, right? Remember I talked about the Charles F. Adams class? Well, this is another of them. Our shipbuilders built 3 Charles F. Adams class guided missile destroyers, brand new, for the Royal Australian Navy. This is one of them, the Brisbane. And you can see down here the buoy jumpers. You can see the crew here. You can see his white chain coming down. This is the buoy line. But where's the boat? Where's the boat? How the heck did those buoy jumpers get on the buoy? Going back to Blue Jackets Manual again, page 434. The line may be connected if conditions are ideal and the whole operation performed expertly, a lot of ifs here, by a man lowered from the deck. You gotta remember what the freeboard, what the bow of the destroyer back then was. You were pretty close to the, you weren't that far off the buoy. Go back to 1930, Forstack. He says the use of the motor launch, while a wise precaution, is not essential. If you have a large flat buoy, it is a simple matter to land a man on the buoy from the forecastle. Even with small can-shaped buoys, it is not difficult to secure without a boat. The man on the buoy should always wear a life belt and be a good swimmer. So, all right. And here's a look at a modern day buoy jumpers. This is the USS Shiloh, one of our Ticonderoga class cruisers. I have no idea where they're hooking up, but this is kind of a standard buoy you see in a lot of ports. Notice there's a first class bosun mate on the buoy, and I'm sure he doesn't want to be there, but his job is to teach them how to do it. And you can't teach from the main deck, way up there.
With a bullhorn.
Not wise.
Yeah. Now this is one of my favorites here. This is a Royal Navy. Now take a look at it. There's no motor whaleboat here. The longboat. 4 oars. Now this is a case where the conning officer didn't take speed off the ship. Look at the bow wave on the buoy. The buoy is hooked up not by the chain, but it's still got its riding line, the first line over. The buoy jumpers got trapped because the buoy is now being towed. 2 buoy jumpers. If you look closely, there's one guy here and one guy here, and they're holding on for dear life. The coxswain is screaming at these guys, pull, pull, pull. The bow hook, he's attached to the buoy also. Anyway, this is probably late 19th century or early 20th century, just because of the longboat. So mooring to a buoy is rife with problems. Now take a look at a couple things in my research here. I came across a couple interesting pictures. Here's a buoy. This is a very famous destroyer tender. You wouldn't, you know, we've got a destroyer tender skipper back here, but you don't usually talk about destroyer tenders of being famous, but this one was. The Black Hawk, she was the destroyer tender for the Asiatic fleet. The Asiatic fleet back in the 30s, 20s and 30s, cycled from Manila to China, depending on the weather. They're right now, they're at Chefoo, China in the mid-30s, and there are 6 destroyers all sitting alongside, 6 4-pipers. Left to right, Black Hawk 89, the Balmer, the Pillsbury, the Pope, the John D. Ford, the Parrott, and the Peary. Any of you who have read the history of the first year of the Second World War in the Pacific will recognize 3 of them. The Pillsbury, Pope, and the Peary were all sunk in early 1942. And on our back wall here, Pillsbury is number 3. The 3 of them are number 3, 5, and 6 on our memorial wall in the back. Pardon? Oh, okay. You see a seaplane here? Biplane, seaplane. It's a Chefoo, China. Here's a very famous painting. You see a lot. I think we have one on one of our walls here. This is San Diego. There's a painting of the Prairie, AD 15, with 5 ships alongside. And they even identify the port, San Diego, and that's buoy number 23.
God, she was there when I was there.
What's that?
Perry was there when I was there.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I want you to imagine being a crewman on the Richard B. Anybody here from Richard B. Anderson? You're a crewman on the Richard B. Anderson. You're scrubbing up, getting ready to, you're doing your 3 S's. You're getting ready to go on the beach. Your captain, he's a good guy, but he's the junior man. So look where your ship is. You gotta cross every one of those ships. Not too bad getting over. It's coming back. It's coming back is tough. All right. So that was, how many ships was that? 1, 2, 3, that was 6. What I'm gonna show you here is just Asiatic Fleet. This is also 6 ships alongside, swinging at a buoy, and that's also the Black Hawk. These are different ships, though. Only one of them is the same, 228, but swinging from the buoy. Here's the Dixie. Dixie, yeah, I think it's Dixie. If you notice, she's at a buoy, and she also has 6, some gearings, some Fletchers. You can get more now. 10 ships outboard. You're on the, anybody from the Fisk? We had Fisk. Okay, Jim, you're on the Fisk, you're getting ready to go on the beach.
No.
I gotta do that? Because you know what's gonna happen. There are 10 ships to cross. 9 ships before you get to before they get to the 11th. One of these OODs is gonna give you a hard time. Coming or going, at least one. So, all right, 10, that's the Sierra.
You,
Yes,
just a point, the most modern destroyer tenders the Navy had redesigned their thinking a bit, and they meant 3 on either side of the ship.
Right.
Because the services could be detached from both sides.
okay.
Those, only one side.
Oh, is that what it was? Okay. Well, there was one ship way back when, the Kanawha. You thought 10 was bad? You thought 10 was bad, Jim? 13. 13 destroyers being tended by one destroyer tender.
Gotta send the pump over.
All right, now for you East Coast guys, I've never experienced this, but this is not a med moor, but it's the sort of thing that you would see in Mediterranean when you had very restricted area. You would bring ships rather than alongside the pier. You would bring them stern to the pier because you could stack more of them up. This is kind of different. These ships have their anchors out, which is how you would do a med moor. You pull up, drop the hook, back down on the hook, and then tie off to the pier. But they're not tying off to the pier. Each one of these guys is tied off to 2 buoys. To 2 buoys. I don't know what port this is, but it's Mediterranean. And Navy's not the only one who uses buoys. This is somewhere is a, and it's not even fully loaded. If he were fully loaded, he'd be up, his water line would be about here. But you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, but you can see all the rest of the lines. There's probably 8 buoys. Nice thing about a buoy is they can be planted and retrieved. Most of them are in a certain point, a certain place. And when I say planted and retrieved, this is how they do it. The buoy itself is nothing more than a flotation device. That's all it is. Its job is to keep that anchor shackle, that what he calls anchor shackle, mooring shackle, above the water. That's all it's there for. But you can see it's actually moored to 3 or 4 or 5, depending on how much bite they have to take.
Could they be in series, chained together?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think they would. I'm almost sure they would be all independent. But you remember, if somebody hooks up, if a ship hooks up to this, there's got to be enough room between that buoy and the next one for that ship to swing 360. And if there's not, that's when they rig to 2 buoys, 4 and aft, so you can't go anywhere. Okay. All right, now you think it might be a modern day thing? No. Here's USS Raleigh, a protected cruiser it was called at the time. Commissioned in 1894, decommissioned right after the First World War, swinging from a buoy. But to go back even further than that, undated, have no idea. Sailing ship somewhere, swinging from a buoy.
No, they had to do it even back when they had the New Hampshire, big multi-deck, 4-deck gunners, sailing ship.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't pull into port. They had to.
Oh yeah, there was nowhere to pull into unless you were a merchant. You know. Okay, this is what American buoys generally look like, white with a blue stripe. I don't think this is a Coast Guard buoy tender because they're not in Coast Guard uniforms. But they have just pulled the buoy, and they're swapping its chain over from the old to the new. So they would take that buoy back in and they would refurbish it, repaint it, make sure it's watertight, and do all that. So generally, unless it's owned by the government, a government buoy, I think the Coast Guard would probably take care of those. But if it were just a normal municipal buoy, whoever the city would take care of it probably. And that's it generally. Any questions on buoys? Yes.
My question is, I can see when they put that line through the buoy, through the, whatever hook it was on the buoy,
Yeah.
how do they attach it and disconnect it? And how do they do that without another guy having to go out to disconnect it?
All right, you're talking about this picture here?
Yes.
All right. Up on deck, the first thing you're going to do, detachable links in your anchor chain, right? Detachable links. You stop off the anchor chain. You don't want to detach it and let it run back down. So you stop it off, you detach it, and it's sitting up on the deck, and it has a mooring shackle. You put a mooring shackle into it, right? This is like a trolley. It's nothing more than a shackle. It's just a trolley, right? So the guy on the buoy jumper would be back aboard the buoy. What you don't see here is a light line. There would be a light line attached to this, and as soon as he was ready for the anchor, they would start walking it out on the Wildcat. They would start walking the chain out, and as they walked it out, it would slide down. It would slide down on this shackle all the way down, and the kid on the buoy jumper would put, and what he would do, he has the shackle with the pin that's got a lanyard on it so he doesn't lose it over the side, because that probably happened once or twice. So that's how it's done. Does that answer your
Yes.
question? Yeah.
Just the pin, and he has to be there to disconnect it again when they're
Oh, yeah.
getting underway.
The most important point is you don't want to kill a kid on the buoy. So you don't leave him aboard. Although you've got an 18-year-old kid, so I'll just stay aboard. He doesn't realize how dangerous it really can be. So, yeah.
Yeah, that would be, I was on an LSD, my first ship. They had done it numerous times. They used a wire rope. The only time you would call a line a rope, because
Yes,
it's
wire rope,
entwined
yeah.
with cable
Yeah,
and
right.
line.
Right, yeah, that's a good point. And there is a picture.
God, I hate doing that.
Navy always, oh, by the way, at one point, because a four-stack destroyer is only 1,200 to 1,500 tons. That's it, very tiny, as opposed to the 7,900 tons of an Arleigh Burke. So anchor chain is in proportion to the size of the ship. So what's big on the Arleigh Burke is smaller on a four-stack. So what they did, and in fact, what you see here is not the way it's described in 1930. 1930, they brought the anchor chain down and sent it right back up again. So the anchor chain was not hooked. That didn't happen until they started mooring cruisers and battleships to it, because the destroyers would come, the chain would come down, it would go through the ring, and would go right back up aboard, and it would be stopped off. So you had a chain like this. I have a sea story. Watching my captain go to a buoy. And captain has a JA circuit, that's his captain's command, or command circuit, that's what they call it, the sound-powered phone. He's got, and there was a second-class yeoman, somebody who really was shoulder to shoulder with the captain. The captain's on the bridge. Chief boatswain mate is on the forecastle. We're approaching the buoy. And the buoy, the problem is the buoy will tuck underneath the bow and you won't be able to see it. So you've got to be really sure what you're doing. And it's important that the chief boatswain mate on the forecastle and his phone talker are in no doubt communication with the captain and his phone talker. Well, it broke down. The captain is moving, all of a sudden he can't see the buoy, and he's passing word, and all his yeoman is saying is, say again, and all of a sudden, and the ship is still moving, and the captain loses it. He jumps up on the wing of the bridge, grabs a hold of the windbreak, pulls himself up like a like a figurehead on an old sailing ship, and screams at the top of his lungs, "Hey, Chief!" And the chief bosun mate, with an equally loud voice, turns around from the forecastle, "Yes, sir!" And the two of them talk to each other all the way, and the two phone talkers just stood there, but that's how hairy it can get.
So,
Yes, sir.
when we did it on the Knox class, the conning officer was actually on the forecastle.
Really?
Yeah, so they were relaying orders from the forecastle
Yeah.
through the phone talker to the helmsman.
Oh, so that's a way to solve that problem,
Right,
right?
for that very reason.
Sure, yeah.
That's different.
Yeah.
Yes, sir, Jim.
These are all Westpac that you showed the photos.
Yeah.
The nesting would be the same in Newport Harbor
Yes,
in the 40s and the 50s,
sure.
before they built Piers 1 and 2.
Yep.
And it wasn't not uncommon to see upwards of 8 destroyers, 4 and 4, swinging on a hook with
Sure.
the tender.
Yeah, remember, Newport was the home of the cruiser destroyer force Atlantic. So it was full of tin cans, full of them, yeah. Let me back up here just to, I want to kind of touch on what you just, where are we here? Hong Kong. All right, sorry. The reason I thought that this was, when I'm looking at this, the caption on the photograph didn't say where it was. It said when it was, 1938. So I went and I researched the battle problem of 1938. And destroyers were generally in San Diego. So the reason I assumed this was San Diego is because if you look at a harbor chart of Long Beach, Seal Beach, in that area, Los Angeles Harbor, you don't see a spit of land there, right? That's why I'm thinking. But for you West Coast sailors, San Diego guys, this entire area, I think, is 32nd Street. All the piers at 32nd Street. That's just my opinion. Right. Any other sea stories or? Yes, Bill.
You showed an orange buoy in one of those pictures, and we actually refueled from one that looked like that in Massawa, prepping to go through the Suez Canal, because the supply officer who scheduled the fuel scheduled it for diesel fuel for the Perry, which was same class as the Kennedy,
Right.
and we needed an NSFO, so we ended up getting it from a pod out in the middle of the harbor.
Yeah.
From AGIP, A-G-I-P, the Italian oil company.
Right, I did see one of those, I just didn't put it up here, but there were actually fuel lines going out. That's how, when you bring a large oil tanker in, they're not going alongside the pier. They're pumping that fuel from way out there, and that line is attached to a floating buoy. I don't know that they tie up to it, but you guys probably did. Yeah. So.
They were color coded for depending what they were for.
Yeah.
General mooring, refueling, ammo, restricted areas.
I'm not sure. But around the world, you'll see buoys, and I found so many pictures of them, and it's just a representative. By the way, I'm not sure if this is Hong Kong, but it's in an Asian port. This is a destroyer, a Fram. If you saw the whole picture, so he's hooked to this. This is his anchor chain, down in the water and back up to the buoy. But there's something else hooked to him because the buoy's being pulled this way. So something else is tied off to that, not with an anchor chain, but with a wire rope or a cable. Don't know what it was. Yes,
You
Jim?
mentioned fore and after anchoring to a buoy, it should be specified Kaohsiung.
My only point here is, first time we ever moored in my, I was just an ensign at the time. I had nothing to do with it. I was told to stay the hell out of the way. But we moored, and this is out of our log, to 2 buoys. And the 2 buoys, instead of swinging at one like this ship, APA 237, I forget who that was, he had plenty of room to swing. Kaohsiung Harbor was a more congested harbor. So when the same ship, went into Kaohsiung, we were assigned 2 buoys, and we just sat there between the 2. Any sea stories about mooring to a buoy? I know Bill mentioned before we started that Newman K. Perry, was it?
Yes.
Newman K. Perry in Kaohsiung, captain backed the ship right into the buoy and bent the shaft. So they had to go from Kaohsiung to Subic Bay at what, 6 knots? You said
6 knots on 1 screw.
on 1 screw. Yeah. And the captain survived.
There's a lot of rudder.
Yeah.
And then went into floating dry dock, and they shipped a new shaft out from Norfolk.
From Norfolk all the way up. Wow.
Yes.
To your point about not doing this very often, that is totally true. I took my ship out to Pearl Harbor to do refresher training. And one of the absolutes you had to do was motor a buoy.
Yeah.
And that, believe it or not, is the only time I ever moored Marvin Shields to a buoy.
And you were great after that.
Yeah.
You had to pass that, though.
Gotta
Yeah,
check the
I'm
mark.
saying, you were great.
So you had to sit there and spend 2 hours remembering how to do this, and
Yeah, it's definitely coordination between the, and I'll tell you, for all you snipes, if you're not paying attention down in main control, you gotta answer the bell. Because the captain is dealing with bare steerage way approaching that buoy, so he wants to take that off, you gotta answer it. You can't log it first and then answer it. You can't do that. You can't do that. Okay, and
You gotta
yes,
know
sir.
that the time lag between the time you give that order on the bridge to when you get a response from the
You're
engineering
not
department.
kidding. And now the Wally Burke guys don't know what you're talking about, Jim, because it's all.
They're right on the deck.
Yeah,
Problem
it's
right
all,
there.
yeah.
Right in control.
One more volunteer, please. Sir? Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Scott Smith. I served on Dombey Berry, FF 1085. Let's see, DDG 67, 63, 61, FFG 42, and DDG 1001. So this story is from when I was XO of DDG 61. We were in the Mediterranean, tooling around the south of France during the 60th anniversary of the Allied landings there. As part of the Sixth Fleet's celebration of this time, we anchored out this little town called Théoul-sur-Mer, which is just by Caen, France. So celebrations, like I said, all along the southern coast of France, essentially from Nice all the way to Monaco, and we were sending sailors everywhere. So as XO, I had to coordinate. All right, who's going here? Who's going here? And the little town of Théoul-sur-Mer was having a celebration that the captain said, "Hey, I want to make sure that we're going to this one." Yes, sir. Yeah, easy day. So at this one, this was being hosted by either Ralph Lauren or Pierre Cardin, somebody like that. Somebody that I wouldn't, as you can tell by my dress, I wouldn't associate with. So, but he was really intent on going. So, we staffed the right people to go to this thing, and we're all in our whites, and the party's going. The champagne's really, really quite good because either Pierre Cardin or Ralph Lauren owns a vineyard that they source this from. So the night's wearing on, and you know, just kind of walking around, and there's a guy with his collar up, like, you know. And so I went over to him, I'm like, oh, hey, sorry, you know, this isn't, it's not right. Just looked weird. Turned out that was Ralph Lauren or Pierre Cardin, you know, that was the style, you know, in the, whenever this was, or I guess 2000s, early 2000s, you know, to wear your collar up. So I ended up correcting Ralph Lauren on his style choices, and the captain was fuming, but Pierre Cardin he was nice about it. He sent down a couple of bottles of champagne for us to take home. So, you know, it all worked out in the end. But
Captain, it would have been a case if you hadn't done that.
what's that?
It would have been a case, not a couple
Don't
of
say
bottles.
that.
And the last time I had a presentation 2 years ago about Howard Kennedy, which I was aboard, almost sank, 1961, on an inland seas cruise. But I'm not going to tell that story again. But I'm going to tell another story. The first time we came across for the Med cruise, we stopped at the Rock of Gibraltar. So what I did, went ashore, my cameras and pictures, took pictures inside all the tunnels. Great. Went back to the ship, stowed it away. Me and the cook went ashore drinking. Went in one of the bar rooms. So there's English sailors and American sailors. Of course, somebody said something wrong to one or the other. And it started, the brawl started. And it just grew from a little couple of, it just spread right out. Everybody was fighting. Somebody comes in, shore patrol's coming, shore patrol. So now me and the cook, we go running out, and we're going down the road. We're going to get back to the ship. There's a motorcycle sitting on the side of the street. He says, come on, Arnie. He says, get aboard, get behind me. He gets it started. We go about 50 feet, and it stalls. So now he's jumping on it, trying to get it started again. And we hear sirens coming. So him and I are booking it. We're taking off, and we get to a platform, and we see the ship way down there, and we get to the platform, and we got to get down. We know we got to get down. So we're going down drain pipes. We're actually going down a building, the front of a building, trying to get back to the ship. So we made it back, and I said, if we ever got caught doing what we did, trying to steal a motorcycle, we'd be restricted for the whole Med cruise. The rest of the cruise, I went ashore, and anybody who wanted to be nice, going ashore and just do sightseeing, they went with me.